Hey guys, welcome to the layout. Today we're doing something for a first time in the history of the channel. I'm calling it Modeling with George because we got George Bogatak from Soundtracks, and he's going to talk about a couple of his models that he's done some light weathering on, but more importantly some very cool lighting features. So let's take a look at what you can do with models if you're a good modeler like George, because I sure am not there yet.
Hey guys, so what I've done here is I've taken a factory Athearn Genesis GP38-2 and I've added some detail and done some very light weathering to it. Now some of the things you'll notice here as far as detail is concerned is we've added the spark arresters in the Mopac style here on the top of the long hood. If you look closely, I've actually got cab figures on the inside, so I had to go through and completely disassemble. When I'm doing some weathering, I usually use an airbrush. And I very carefully kind of think of what does the locomotive do and how is it being used. And so of course with the exhaust stacks being up here on top, we spray a lot of heavy weathered black or some straight black and things like that, colors like that around the top. What's some of the other things is down on the bottom, this is where the dirt and the mud and things like that tend to spray up. And so you'll see that down below we've got a little bit more of a brownish tint where it comes up and sprays up on the end. A modeling effect that a lot of people don't realize or don't know about is when the wheels are going over the rail and there's mud or dirt across there, it splatters up off the wheels of, say, freight cars and stuff like that. So when you're doing your weathering, you can take the airbrush to a really fine point and just kind of shoot from the ground up, and it'll give some of the light spray patterns here on the front of the locomotive as far as weathering is concerned. And then over above the fuel tank, the fuel filler here on the side, I actually take a really thinned down black and just kind of with one of those little micro brushes just kind of blot it and let the thinner and the paint roll down the side of the fuel tank to simulate overspilled run and dirt that's potentially collecting, and so it gives a really cool, neat effect. Now on this particular model, I've also gone through and converted the whole model to LEDs, and we've illuminated the two class lights on the nose, the headlight, and there's actually a little truck light on the side here that's above the trucks. And the reason it's there is when the engineers are in the cab and say it's dark at night, they feel the locomotive moving, but they may not necessarily realize that the locomotive is not moving. And so those lights shine down above the trucks so that the engineer and fireman can look straight down and see that the ground is actually moving. So with that, I want to show you that, James. So let's turn some lights off, and I'll turn the lights on the locomotive, and we'll really shine and show what we can do. Now on this one here, function 0, of course, turns on the headlight. Now on my railroad, James, I think you came over and we ran trains when you were over that time. So what we do, yeah, let me try that again.
Okay.
So I think when you came over last time, we were running some trains, and if you remember, we don't use directional lights on the railroad, because the engineers in the real world didn't turn off the headlight and turn on the backup light to do a switching move. So in that case, I have independent control. So the backlight is actually set to function 28. So I have independent control and non-directional control of my lights so that way I can illuminate them properly. On this locomotive, I've also got front and rear class lights, and these are the lights that are on the nose. So let's turn those on. And you can see them come on, and you're going to notice they're actually dim. Now this is one of the really cool features of the Tsunami 2 decoder is I can take a CV and adjust the brilliance so that those class lights don't appear to be more headlights coming down the track. So it gives a realistic difference between the illumination of the class lights and the illumination of the headlight. Now the class lights were used to identify the train, and in the era I model, 1978, they were all extras, and so the lights were clear. But this indicated the front of the train, so when they were passing, the train orders would say extra 2121 pass whatever depot, and so any trains waiting for extra 2121 would then realize that this is Loco 2121 with the class lights on. Now as I talked about, we've got those truck lights, so I'm going to turn those on now, and you can see that those lights are illuminated there above the trucks. So this gives a really cool lighting effect, especially when it's dark and you're operating nighttime. On my layout, I have dimmable lights, and then I ran blue Christmas lights under the valance so that you can, it's dark and it feels like night, but it's enough that you can see what you're doing, and this gives a really cool effect. And so But this is just one of the things I brought to show you. Let's show you one that I think you'll really appreciate. Now, James, I figured you being a UP guy, I would have to bring this one to show you. Now, one of the cool things about this is a showpiece locomotive, and so they're going to keep this one pretty clean. So the weathering on this is done very, very subtly, and you really kind of have to look to notice the weathering. But of course, the exhaust stack, there's actually some black right around the exhaust stack where the diesel fuel and the diesel exhaust would be coming up. And then a little bit here on the front of the plow, you see some little brown slight discoloration, and same thing along the trucks. You don't see it's very much, but it's just subtle enough all the way down to simulate a little bit of the dirt and mud being slung up. Now this one here is one of my favorite ones because I've actually gone through and added some extra LED lights onto this model. So actually this model originally came with LEDs, so the headlight and the ditch lights were already LEDs, but the decoder itself gave me the ability to add more lights. And so what I've done on this one here is I've actually added the truck lights just like I did on that Mopac GP38, but on this one I've added step lights. So we actually have step lights all the way around the locomotive. So that way when this thing's running in the dark, it really pops off that layout. So let's kill the lights and take a look. Now here on this, we're going to go ahead and turn on the headlight so you can see that the headlight is on. We're going to turn on our ditch lights, which on the aftermarket Tsunami is function 24. Now we're going to turn on the truck lights, which will be function 25. And you can see those illuminate right here above the truck. And again, like we talked about with the Mopac, it's designed to allow the engineer to look down to make sure that the ground is actually moving. And then now we're going to turn on our step lights. And so I've got 4 lights located around the model on the step wells, and these are there because at night the crew needs to be able to see, and it comes into a safety issue, and so that way they can see the step to make sure that they can put their foot on it and come up rather than take a guess, miss, and potentially hurt themselves.
And one note I'd like to make is you might be seeing a little bit of a flicker on these. That's because the frame rate of the camera is out of sync with the LED, because LEDs, if you don't know, have a very, very quick flicker rate. You just can't see it with a naked eye. So if there's any flicker, that's not what's going on with the actual LED in person. From what you can see with the naked eye, it's just the camera out of sync with the LED flicker rate.
That is. And we run into that a lot of times when we're doing filming at soundtracks, is the frame rate and stuff. So. And
you can fix it, I'm just too lazy to do it.
Well, one of the things here also that's probably making it look a little worse is the fact that the Tsunami 2 allows you to adjust the brilliance. So like we were talked about with the class lights, the same thing here. The truck lights and the step lights are actually dimmed, and so the PWM duty cycle makes it a little bit more obvious when the light goes out in between the to make the light look dimmer to our eyes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a frame rate adjustment in the editing software. I just forget where it's at, and I don't mess with it, but. Yeah. Thanks, George, for showing some.
Actually, I got one more light on here.
Oh,
that I haven't.
Another light?
I got a secret light for you.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times when these locomotives, especially more modern locomotives, when they go into emergency, the crew knows that there's an issue with one of the locomotives, and so they can go back and have to figure out which locomotive it is, and adjust, fix the issue, and then get back on the road. Well, some of the more modern locomotives, you actually will notice a red light in the cab happens to go on when the locomotive is thrown into emergency. And the reason for that is because that way the crews can get down, figure out which unit it is really quickly, address the issue, and get back on the road. So on this particular one here, when we throw the emergency stop, you hear the air dump, but if you look closely in the cab, you can actually see a red glow inside that cab. Now to show this off a little better, we went ahead and removed the roof on the Athearn Genesis SD70 ACE. And so if you look really closely here, you can see that I have the LED right here across the top. So when I throw my emergency stop, now you can see that that light lit up. And again, it's not really bright like a headlight. We've dimmed it so that that way it gives you just enough of a glow, but you can tell that that one is the one that went into emergency.
Well, thanks, George, for stopping by and showing us some of the cool features of what a modeler can do with both lighting effects and the fact that they are Soundtrack's Tsunami decoders, and that you can have a lot of lighting effects. How
You have up to 6 on the aftermarket, and then actually a little secret is the Athearn factory install ones, especially some of the newer ones, actually have 8 functions on it, and so we're looking to get 8 functions implemented. We're looking to get 8 functions implemented into the aftermarket product line, hopefully soon.
Cool. So a little bit of insider information there for you, some modeling, because you don't see a whole lot of it on my channel. But thanks for stopping by, George. Great to see you. We'll see you guys next time right here on my channel. Take care.